Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. Sealed packs, Dominaria United, Streets of New Capenna. Do we think that there's a card in these packs worth $2 million? Probably not. No. In fact, I know that there isn't because I actually worked on those sets and there were no serialized one-of-one cards in them. Unlike the current Magic the Gathering set, the Lord of the Rings one that had a sealed one-of-one, one ring to rule them all card that was just found the other day. And so, even though this is a comic book YouTube channel, I thought about talking about it because I kind of had a nightmare the other night thinking about this Magic the Gathering card. Just thinking about where we are in the comic book hobby, all the gimmicks that have been going on, the sales that have not been being had, the pullbacks in the market, whether it be in the vintage side or the new comic book side, them trying to pull out gimmicks like Death of Miss Marvel that sold terribly, and all these things. And this nightmare I had led me to think that maybe the comic book market is going to learn something from this Magic the Gathering card, and maybe comic books are next. But before I get into it, if you guys could drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps our channel do things I appreciate it. But let's get into this video here today. Now, again, I just want to catch you guys up on this Lord of the Rings card before we pivot to comic book talk here. But in case you guys didn't know about this, the recent Magic the Gathering set did a Lord of the Rings crossover, and they actually had a one-of-one serialized ring card that they randomly distributed in all of the collector booster boxes. And the fervor around this card was unlike anything I think that we've seen in the collectible market for quite some time, to the point where there were people out there that were putting bounties on the card, upwards of $2 million. Somebody was saying, whoever finds this card, I will give them $2 million for it. That's how insane it actually went. So you can imagine what the secondary market was doing with the booster boxes. They basically retail around the $200 price point, if I'm not mistaken, and they shot up all the way to the $500 price point. People were going crazy. People were looking to do unboxings, find this card. But it didn't take long since the release of the set. Just a couple days ago, the ring was actually found, sent into PSA, and was graded a 9, unfortunately. Not a PSA 10, but the card has been found, and that instantly put a damper on the value of those boxes. The volatility in the boxes went immediately down to like the $390 level. I think they've kind of evened around the $400 level because there's still going to be, cards and things that have value in this set that people still want to collect. But the prized possession, of course, was the one ring that did get graded by PSA. And it was really an interesting story. This generated so much PR, so much hype. Obviously, it increased the value of the product. Everybody was going for this. It was genuinely a Willy Wonka golden ticket situation. Even people outside of the Magic the Gathering collector space were talking about this. I mean, even here on our channel, where we talk about comic books, I even decided that it was worth doing a video about. But I did still want to pivot it to comic books because I know you guys are already thinking, Swag, who cares about Magic the Gathering? But I think that it is important to think about this because I sometimes think that the card market is often the canary in the coal mine for the comic book market. Time and time again, we've seen the sports card market and the TCG market do things that have seeped into comic books. And I have a feeling, a worry, a speculation that we might see some kind of stunt like this soon in the comic book market. And why do I actually think that that is a possibility? Well, I happened to pull up this article that was 10 awesome comic book gimmicks of the 90s. And that was something that I thought was interesting because based on where we are now in the comic book market, history repeats itself. It feels like we are coming off of that sort of 90s boom, that we got in 2021 once again. And after we got the boom, we had a lot of gimmicks popping up in the comic book market. And I guess I want to just quickly roll through these gimmicks to show you guys how much the 90s is repeating itself right here in the current comic book market. I mean, look at the types of things that they were pulling out after the boom cycle that we had in the early 90s. We had the Gen 13 variant covers. Look at this, homages to all the movie stuff. I mean, how many times do we see homages constantly being done in the current market today? They were doing that all the way back then in the 90s. They were doing fan and celebrity comic books right here, which is The Good Guys right here, which is a Jim Shooter idea where he was taking fans and taking their ideas and using celebrities to promote it and stuff like that. We had the trading card stuff, which of course we've already seen trading cards in the comic book market as well. We had glow-in-the-dark covers, which, I would say that kind of where we are with foil and glow-in-the-dark and shininess, that is a very 90s thing that we've been seeing. We got my favorite right here. We got the simp covers, voluptuous women on the cover. I mean, it got very, very voluptuous after the 90s boom. But in scrolling through this article, there's one thing that I feel like we haven't seen yet in the comic book market, and that is the return of what you see right here, Polybag. The return of the Polybag to the comic book market. And this is kind of where, I was reminded of this Lord of the Rings stuff and basically what happens with, sports cards, TCGs, box breaks, pack openings, and things like that. We haven't seen the Polybag return. And there's a lot of things that, frankly, if Marvel and DC was smart, they would bring back the Polybag thing. Think about this. Imagine that they do a one-of-one variant foil cover for Spider-Boy #1 that is like literally it's a serialized numbered cover, and every one of these covers is polybagged. So effectively, it's just like Magic the Gathering, has to be a pack rip, or you have to rip open the polybag, just like the Death of Superman cover, and they do a one-of-one. Or maybe they do a collector set. Like I even was joking around with some friends the other day talking about how, imagine they did the 6 Infinity Stones. One of each Infinity Stone, a one-of-one cover on the new, Silver Surfer run. They polybagged it. And so there were only going to be 6 out there in the comic book market. And I have a feeling that if Marvel and DC are smart, this is what we are going to start to see. They've already been pulling out the gimmicks. They already tried the big, push with the death of Miss Marvel to do that kind of death gimmick, make that an event that everyone gravitates to. But, anecdotally, there's been a lot of comic book shops that have already talked about how there was just not that much interest in that comic book. It didn't sell very well. Not a lot of people interested in it. So Marvel and DC have to figure out, okay, well, what is going to be the next thing that gets market attention? And we've been seeing, the retail variants doing all of the gimmicks. We've been seeing, the simp covers all of the time. And I got to say, I think that we've reached peak simp cover. I think the market got saturated. I don't know about you guys, but when I made that video way back talking about that stuff, I feel like that was the height, because I think it's safe to say we're finally seeing less of them. I can once again scroll onto Instagram and not have to hide it in public because I'm embarrassed from the pictures that pop up in my feed. And then we also saw the explosion of foil logos. Just every single week we were getting foil logos again and again and again. And it seems like those are slowing down. So what is the next thing going to be? Now, shout out to Bryce Comics. Bryce Comics, a great friend of the channel. I consider him one of my good comic book friends. He recently did a one-of-one Miles Morales cover as his retail variant. And he worked with CGC to make that sort of thing happen. I think that the idea of it is cool. A lot of people don't like that type of thing. But imagine taking that sort of application, like what Magic the Gathering did with this Lord of the Rings card, and actually having Marvel do it or DC do it in some giant marketing push. I have a feeling like that's going to happen. And frankly, I don't know if this is a good thing for the collectible market. I think here in the, there were a 2023 collectible comic book market where things are really tough. Getting sales is really, really difficult. I think that the gimmicks are the things that these companies are still looking to do. Because unfortunately, even at this point, even if there are good stories out there, the stories just are not enough to sell in this market because it is so saturated and it is really difficult to break through and actually have a massive success when everyone is holding their cash close to the vest, not being able to buy, a bunch of comic books week after week. So the gimmicks are going to be the things that get them through this. And with Magic the Gathering, they've been ratcheting it up every single expansion that they've done, where they had, some old cards from, the essentially the unlimited days, where they found like a warehouse finded them. They put them in the sets. They did like a bunch of serialized cards. They did this Lord of the Rings thing. So, you know, they're really on this treadmill doing these sort of gimmick things. And this has been something that has been plaguing the sports card market as well, where the one-of-one auto cards and the sketch cards and things like that have already been, you know, crazy for every single sports card company out there. And I think it's only a matter of time that this finds its way into comic books. Now, I am, again, just speculating here, but if Marvel and DC are smart, which I don't know if they are, they probably would apply some of these techniques to the comic book market. And all I gotta say is hold on to your butts, because that might be not so good for comics as a whole. Or maybe it's going to be great. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this? I felt like weighing in on the Lord of the Rings card. I thought it was a pretty interesting story, and it wouldn't surprise me to see the return of the Polybag and potentially one-of-one covers find their way into comics. Let me know what you guys think about that. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content. See you all in the next video.